publication. Property Magazine is all inside the Daily Nation today for your consumption. And help and end salary protest by JSS teachers. Kupet is asking MPs, and this is on the back page of the Daily Nation today. Poll shows Biden and Trump neck and neck ahead of November US elections. This is on page 23 of the Daily Nation today. Star is holding this flash for you. Big split in Mount Kenya as Karua leads Limuru 3. That is the story that you want to follow inside the publication today. Ethnic unity, public service. Moses Kuria has signaled his intention to attend. UDA stalwarts led by DP Gachagua have dismissed meeting as came to divide community. The story on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. And also son on death row for 13 years. The mom speaks. She says, a long 4-day I will meet and plead for forgiveness from Saudi widow. That is Nadia. And you can follow the story on page 2 of the Star. Remember, tomorrow was the D-Day that the son was meant to face the executioner. And this is for the case of murder. And the government has also intervened on this with the Saudi government, and that has now been withheld until negotiations are done. And then we will know what is the ultimate end of this as well. But this is a good gesture also from the government of Saudi Arabia, hearing the plea of a mother who's crying for the son. Also, Kenya not out of the woods yet as citizens grapple with the effects of heavy rains, and you can see how the devastating effects of the floods have also affected students. Dark times, learners in a classroom at a school in Mathare, Nairobi. Schools across the nations have opened for the second term after a 2-week delay due to flooding. Now, also MPs Karoli Omondi, Daniel Manduku, and Gideon Ochanda are viewing the bodies of victims killed by floods at Sindo Market in Suba South constituency. You can see here. And also we can see the scene of a landslide in Kiambu County on Tuesday when several people are feared trapped at Kimende escarpment. That story continues also inside the Star this morning. That's how the publication looks. Also inside blow to farmers as Linturi says no payout for crops, animals ruined by floods. Azmir directs troops to shoot down brutal finance bill. Hint, return of demos. That is the Star today. People Daily. Gachagua seeks 2.6 billion shillings for luxury. That is what is headlining the front page of the People Daily today. Budgets. DP wants cash for repair of his current residence, Arambe Annex Office, purchase of cars, medals, honors, insignia, and confidential expenditure. That story on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. And Kenya's new envoy to Russia under probe for corruption. Mathuki on the spot over his conduct as the head of EAC Secretariat. Remember, also a lawyer had raised concerns regarding his deployment to Russia and also leaving EACC on, that is EAC, East African Community, I should say, Secretariat, with a lot to be desired as far as his conduct on financial malfeasance is concerned. And this is the allegations: irregular imprest, recruitment of friends, victimization of staff, faking travel expenses, amongst others. That is the story to unfold on page 3 of the People Daily this morning. Kalonzo will return to the streets of a NADCO. That is the story to unfold on page 6 of the People Daily this morning. And how parastatals will be merged is a big story that you want to follow. We'll give you the story also much later in the course of the program, where we have the first 35 parastatals which they're chalked up for a merger. We'll give you the list of these parastatals much later in the course of the program. Hasla Bwanyenye, that is what Taifa Leo is holding today. And you can see the man in shades there, Naibu Rais Rigathi Gachagua, ambaye afisi yake imetengewa mabilioni. Ubadhirifu, wabunge wametilia shaka bajeti ya zaidi ya bilioni 2 iliyopendekezwa kwa afisi ya Naibu Rais Rigathi Gachagua katika mwaka ujao wa matumizi ya fedha za serikali. That story continues on page 2. And of course, you have the listing here of how that budget is broken down. It's been itemized here for you, 640 million shillings. Karabatia ofisi ya Naibu Rais Harambee Annex. And it continues on and on and on. I'll not be able to read all of that for you. You can grab a copy to get all the gritty details of what is in Taifa Leo today. Hasla Bwanyenye, ofisi ya Naibu Rais kupata mabilioni ya matumizi wakati mgao wa lishe shuleni unaondolewa kwenye mabajeti. That is what the flagger is reading, and follow the story inside Taifa Leo. All right, this is in Uganda. I wanted to show you what is on the front page of a business daily. I think I missed out, but I will show you. But this is what is happening in Uganda this morning. Parliament to vote on new taxes today. This is excess duty, a proposal to increase the tax levied on a liter of kerosene, that is paraffin, from 200 to 500 is among the issues that will be discussed as Parliament reconvenes to pass the excess duty amendment bill 2024. Remember, this is Ugandan shillings. And you can follow the story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor. Some tax proposals before Parliament are also broken down here for you. 500 shillings kerosene proposed, tax for 500 shillings per litre, up from 200. 0.5% mobile money proposed, charges on agent withdrawals. 100 shillings petrol and diesel from 1,550, tax up. That is tax up from 1,450 per litre. 12% for juice, 12% or 250 shillings proposed, tax down from 13 and 500 shillings each bag of cement, including adhesives, grout, white cement as well. That is the increase. And census counting against all odds. Enumerators from the Uganda Bureau of Statistics take details of a family at Lambu landing site in Masaka district on Tuesday. About 10,000 residents at the landing sites of Lambu, Kaziru, Kiasa, Karokoso, Marembo and Namirebe, affected by rising waters levels in Lake Victoria, have refused to vacate. And you can see that is the current state of play as far as rising levels of Lake Victoria is concerned, and the residents are affected. Other stories: Uganda internet link routed from Europe. Internet users across the country should brace for fluctuations in speed and disruptions following rerouting of the country's connection from Europe to South Africa to Uganda via Kenya. Our 6 siblings died in Gajansi House fire. All that is inside today's publication in Uganda, the Daily Monitor. This is over 700 Navy pilgrims start walk to Namugongo, and you can follow this story during the Martyrs' Day here on page 7 of the Daily Monitor. The Citizen in Tanzania, EAC turns to tech to curb $6 billion illicit trade. East Africa is expected to adopt a track and trace system to streamline cross-border trade and help stem nearly $6 billion in annual losses resulting from illicit trade. 3.3% illicit trade accounts for approximately that amount of global trade, representing a significant economic loss for governments and legitimate businesses, according to the World Customs Organizations. Also, new employees promotions push up Home Affairs budget. The Home Affairs Ministry's budget has risen by 32.6% to cater for a fresh round of recruitments and promotions. This story on page 2 of The Citizen this morning. And now Usiri brothers are steadily building $1 billion fintech. Read all the details here inside the publication today of The Citizen. Electoral body set to update voter register. Insurance firms upbeat after swift first quarter growth. All that inside the publication. What to expect as Africa CEO Forum kicks off? The forum has previously pushed for a better understanding of African private sector initiatives. This is happening in Rwanda. This is on page 3, where all the CEOs are congregating for this summit. Also, Rwanda's new airport to be completed in 2028. And this is what Makolo, she is saying. That is the Rwanda Air Chief Executive Officer, Makolo Yvonne, speaking during the Qatar Economic Forum in Doha. Makolo revealed that Rwanda's new airport in Bugesera district is expected to start operating in 2028, while Rwanda plans to set up tech to monitor land use and HIV/AIDS RBC calls for testing safety practices in nationwide prevention campaign. All that inside the New Times. Also, we have our First Lady who's written a column inside the New Times as well. Clean cooking advances women's empowerment. This is on page 6 of the New Times in Rwanda, and that is an opinion there by First Lady Rachel Ruto. The East African, DRC relaxes its stance on Kenya ties. That is a splash inside the East African this week. Ruto's special message to Tshisekedi has helped restore trade and diplomatic relations with Kinshasa. This story continues on page 5 of the East African. And you can see an insert here. Near Congo President Felix Tshisekedi receiving President William Ruto's envoy, Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, at the Presidential Palace in Kinshasa on May 9th, 2024. Inside Raila's pitch for AUC job, Kenyan former Prime Minister proposes radical reforms at the continental body if hired in 2025. And lawyers sue Juba in Arusha. They say security agents continue to harass them as they discharge duties as advocates. That story on page 4 of the East African publication. This week, The Economist, the new economic order. That is what is on the front page of The Economist. The new economic order. Read all about it. And Judge Mandering and how to cure it. Singapore under new management. China shock to gangs of Latin America. All that inside the publication. There isn't one in The Economist. The Newsweek as well is here. How China's strategic hub in the Caribbean poses a threat to the U.S. They are here. That is what is the title of the publication inside the New Times. Also, today being Sokoni, Fast Company also has its magazine out. Nike's breaking points. How the brand plans to step up at the Summer Olympics, and 177 world-changing ideas, brilliant solutions to really big problems. And Perplexity, that is AI, the little search engine that could challenge Google. All that inside the publication. Pod Pros, Tech Podcasting's Great Men Dilemma. All that inside the publication as well. We shall be showing you much later other publications. Of course, the Business Daily as well carries a very important story on the merger, where we have the first 35 parastatals to be merged, axed, and this is revealed inside the Business Daily. I will show you that in the course of the program as we get to discuss that with our panelists as well. But for now, President William Ruto is defending the 2024 finance bill. It is the only way to get out of the debt burden, and relying on borrowing, this he says is through the collection of its own revenue, while he backed proposals in this year's finance bill. The opposition Azimio has opposed them, arguing that the government was adding taxes to already overburdened Kenyans. Clement Masombo begins our bulletin with the row over 2024-2025 finance bill.
As the 2023-2024 financial year nears the end, the proposed 2024 finance bill is already dividing Kenyans, with leaders expressing contrary opinions. President William Ruto has defended the bill, more so on the newly introduced taxes.
The whole principle is that you must live within your means. This has been my message to the people of Kenya. For maybe 12 years, we've been running 8-9% fiscal deficit.
The president argues that his broader plan is to expand the economy and end over-reliance on borrowing. The Kenya Kwanza administration intends to raise the country's average tax rate from the current 14% to 16%.
So I persuaded and I made a case to the people of Kenya that we must begin to enhance our revenue. Because if we are a serious state, we must be able to enhance our taxes. So My drive is to push Kenya. Possibly this year, we will be at 16%.
Elsewhere, the opposition Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition is opposed to the Finance Bill 2024, saying that it is a burden to Kenyans. The leaders say they are ready to go back to the streets to oppose the bill.
We know this Finance Bill 2024 is receiving public participation, and it happened the same way. Finance Bill 2023, public participation over 90% of Kenyans, and 98% said no.
They have continued killing all sectors. Agricultural sector, top of the list. Fake fertilizer, and you now have back Linturi. Hata nyinyi pia ni watu wa maajabu. Linturi is back to talk to us.
The Azimio leaders also accused President William Ruto's administration of continued oppression of Kenyans, contrary to what they promised during the campaigns.
Just imagine bringing heavy taxation on bread. Even the little children who have just gone to school will not enjoy their bread with a bit of blue band. They will not.
You sleep and dream. Your only dreams are how to make life even more difficult for Kenyans. Which other areas can you impart some pain on Kenyans until you get to the place where you are thinking of imposing taxation on bread?
Some of the taxes included in the finance bill include motor vehicle circulation tax and an increase in the price of bread. Clement Masombo, KTN News.
All right, at least 3 people. Right, KFS officers in court, where we have 5 Kenyan Forest Service Rangers accused of assaulting 19 students who later died, will remain in police custody, that is a student I should say, until Thursday. The court will decide whether to grant the investigators' application for a 14 extension to conclude their probe or release them in bail. The DCI argues that the Rangers are now prime murder suspects in the case. They allegedly assaulted Stephen Mwangi, who intervened when they arrested his mother, leading to his death days later in the hospital. Ken Gachui has more.
The 5 forest rangers accused of assaulting a teenager who later died appeared before Senior Principal Magistrate Richard Koech at the Eldama Ravine Law Courts. The suspects identified as Zipporah Chepkurui, Charles Korir, Stanley Njoroge, Simon Moora, and Francis Lemisor, stationed at Majimazuri Forest Station, allegedly beat 19-year-old Stephen Mwangi on May 8th. Mwangi intervened when they arrested his mother for collecting firewood in the forest, the young adult, however, succumbing to the injuries on Monday night. The prosecution filed an application to hold the suspects for a further 14 days to allow for investigations, as parents to the deceased closely followed the court proceedings.
Your Honor, the other reason is to allow for the DPP to have time to peruse the duplicate file after it is comprehensively compiled.
The application was, however, opposed by defense lawyer Ruth Kerubo, saying that holding the suspects longer without preferring charges against them was against the law.
I would like to request that the 5 respondents be released on favorable bond terms for the reason that the prosecution does not have any grounds to withhold them.
The family's lawyer, representing the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, expressed concerns about witness interference and the suspect's safety due to public outrage, adding that the 5 had powers to interfere with witnesses.
Critical human rights concerns, and it is in the public domain, and it is only in the interest of justice that the suspect be held in custody pending expeditious investigation by the police.
The court directed the suspects to remain in police custody until Thursday, pending a ruling on the custody application.
This court will deliver a ruling on the said notice of motion tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. Pending the ruling, I do direct that the respondents be remanded in custody at Mogotio Police Station.
Ken Gashuhe, KTN News.
All right. Now, the latest move by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua to push for the one man, one vote, 1 shilling discourse is now causing ripples within the ruling Kenya Kwanza coalition. A section of leaders are unhappy over the preposition, terming it divisive. Tana River Senator Danson Mungatana, who was elected on a UDA party ticket, has now scoffed at the Deputy President, saying the party had not met to agree on the matter and challenged the DP to come out clean, whether he wants to topple President William Ruto's government. And as our senior political affairs reporter, Chris Tharu, explains, the matter is not only causing divisions in top party echelons, but also in Mount Kenya region, where Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria has also vowed to attend Limuru 3 conference being spearheaded by opposition leaders from Mount Kenya.
After vehemently opposing the BBI initiative that had, among other issues, proposed to have a 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling initiative that would have seen a Mount Kenya region get more constituencies and funding, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua now seems to have made an about turn.
Resources are about people. The whole issue of resources is about people. The more you are, the more taxes you pay. And it goes without saying, the more taxes you pay, when it comes to sharing, you share more.
But his latest move now seems to have rattled some of his colleagues within Kenya Kwanza administration.
Once you repeat a lie, you repeat it becomes the truth. So this lie of saying 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote, if we repeat it and we don't say 1 man, 1 vote, 1 kilometer, and tell Kenyans that we are there, you know what is going to happen? This lie is going to become a reality. So at the earliest opportunity, we reject it.
According to Mungatana, who was elected on a UDA party ticket, the Deputy President has no moral obligation to decide for the whole party.
Ikiwa leo tuko 2024, how can you try? Unawezaje kusema policy ya 1963 ndio ikuwe applied sahihi? Tunataka kusema namna hii, na mimi siko peke yangu, tuko watu wengi. Hakuna mkutano wa serikali wa cabinet ambao ulikaa na ukasema ati resources zigawe namna hiyo, makamu wa rais anasema. Hakuna siku chama ilikaa na ikasema ati resources za Kenya zigawe namna hiyo, makamu wa rais anasema. Na tunasema tunakataa. Hii serikali tulipigania sisi sote, na sisi sote tuko na shares katika hiyo serikali. Hatutakubali maneno hii endelee, kwa sababu Kenya hii ni Kenya yetu yote.
The latest tussle comes a day after CS Moses Kuria confirmed that he will be attending the much publicized Limuru 3 meeting set to take place end of this month, organized by opposition leaders from Mount Kenya region.
We will be having people coming from all the counties. Na tutakuwa pale na tutaongea pamoja. This is a team preparing. We are talking about maneno ambayo inatukera sisi wote kama watu wa mlima. Na sio kwa sababu sisi pia tukisuruhisha yale ambayo yanatukera, mtaona ya kwamba pia itakuwa tumeleta suruhu hata kwa mambo ambayo yanawakera wa Kenya wote.
According to sources, the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has already retreated to his Madeira home in Nyeri County together with his political strategist to seek ways on how to counter the negative publicity and ensure that CS Moses Kuria does not overshadow him in the Mount Kenya region. Chris Dairu, KTN News, Nairobi.
23 out of 40 universities in Kenya are insolvent, according to the Principal Secretary for Higher Education, Beatrice Inyangala. The said universities have collectively accumulated a staggering 76 billion shillings in outstanding bills. She insisted that the pending bills are increasing because of the institutions which are not able to raise funds. Inyangala, who was speaking when she appeared before a departmental committee, tabled a set of recommendations aimed at assisting universities in reducing their debt burden.
Already, 23 of our 40 universities are declared technically insolvent. With this variance and the heavy deductions in the budget, it means that more universities will become insolvent. We did have a discussion on what needed to be fed into that cabinet memo. We needed to have undertaken some actions so that we report on the outcomes and state that we have moved this far, we have been able to raise this much money, we have been able to resolve some of the pending bills, and we are projecting that within 5 years we may have been able to resolve some of the bills, but there's still a gap here where we require support. Another action was that we start a discussion with the Kenya Revenue Authority about the possibility of waiving the tax. Again, the outcome of that would be included in the CAB memo, because this CAB memo would then be tabled with endorsement from the Treasury.
Taxation. I'm just getting started. That is what we have as a cartoon inside the Daily Nation today. As you can see it there. And that is what the president has said. If you look at the dailies today as well, that also be prepared for more taxes. And this is Victor. And we have also in the Star, we can still raise more. And you can see all manner of taxations are being burdened on Mwananchi there for mobile money, Spati Pesa, that is also the betting companies as well. We have the levy on bread that also has rules, or brought about a lot of debate regarding it as well. And also on the wealthy tax, that is put 2.5, I should say, taxation that will be put on motor vehicles. And when it comes to insurance, on the sin tax as well. And we have GAMS with the protest that now is coming from the intern medics, and now the baton is being passed to the intern tutors as well, and with the stalemate with the JSS as it stands right now. And few call Milinturi the cat with 9 lives, how he escaped the impeachment, and now he's a free man regarding the fake scandal, that is a fertilizer fake scandal, not the fake scandal. As you can see it here, that is in the Standard today. Right, I just want to introduce our panelists, but before we do that, I just want to show you also as well what we have in the Business Daily today. The first 35 parastatals to be merged, that is the splash on the front page of the Business Daily this morning. At least 20 chief executives risk losing plum jobs. Treasury Ruto economic advisor lead reform discussions. That is what we have on the front page of the Business Daily today. The Treasury and President William Ruto's Council of Economic Advisors have identified an initial set of 35 parastatals that will be merged or wound up under the International Monetary Fund-backed restructuring that could see at least 20 chief executives lose their plum jobs. The restructuring will largely lead to merge of state corporations with the duplicating functions, as well as winding up of struggling entities and transferring their functions to others, resulting in 15 well-resourced agencies. And you can see a good illustrations there, or illustration, Kenya National Shipping Line, and also that will be merged with Postal Corporation of Kenya. We have Kenya Qualifications Authority. That will be merged with the Commission for University Education. We have Export Processing Zone Authority and a Special Economic Zone Authority. That will be merged as well. We have Kenya Academy of Sports, that is CAS, and Sports Kenya. It says that partners with strategic investors, this is what I should be reading, to bring in capital for cargo shipment, clearing and forwarding and last mile destination. Just if I may go back to read what I should be reading. And a new regulator for quality education qualifications. We have also, when we merge Export Processing Zone Authority and Special Economic Zones Authority, we'll have a new entity to create an enabling environment for investors through promotion of processing and special zones. And also, Looking on the sports, establish one entity for development and promotion of sports. Also, Kenya Industrial Property Institute, establish entity to register and patent intellectual and industrial property copyrights to enhance synergy. And also pending bills, verification team clears 110 billion shillings payments. That story, you want to follow it inside the Business Daily this morning. Kenya third in Africa's e-commerce rankings despite market wars. German data and business intelligence platform has ranked Kenya as the third biggest e-commerce market in Africa, driven by increased internet penetration. Also filing objection against tax demands limited to 7 days, and SBM taps 471 million shillings fresh capital from parent, and bid for CBK to control higher purchase cost also is on. The Central Bank of Kenya could soon control borrowing costs in higher purchase deals in fresh proposals that would expand the mandate of the Apex Bank. This is the Business Daily. Right, allow me to introduce our panelists this morning just to discuss a raft of issues that we are raising here. We have with us Professor Exen Iraki, who is a lecturer at the University of Nairobi School of Business. Also, we have Bill Okero with us, political economist. We do have with us Punyasi Sakura as well, who is the chair of Kenya Cooperative Development. That is Kenya Development Corporation. What did I say there? Today I'm mixed up a bit. But good morning, good to see you guys. Thank you for joining us. Excellent. Let's just begin with you, first of all. What we've seen, especially with the pronouncement by the president that we should be bracing for more taxes in the next financial year as well. And he says we should be ready for higher taxes yearly. This is what is on the front page of the Standard this morning.
I think in addition to pronouncing that we might have higher taxes, he should have stated that the level of services will also go up, so that the taxes will be put into use and we see what we are getting out of the taxes. But I found his pronouncement quite interesting, because he's saying we are going to shift the percentage of tax as a percentage of GDP from 15 to 22%. That has two implications. Either we are going to have more taxes, and the current taxes will go up, the rate. But it also has another implication, which I think is what he should have emphasized on. If you look at our tax system, it is progressive. So the more money you make, the higher the tax rate. So this implies that probably more Kenyans will move to higher tax rate. So it means that we are going to become richer. And I hope that's what he meant, that more of us are going to become richer, we are going to make more money, and by extension, the tax rate goes up. But if he meant that we are going to be paying more taxes with the same amount of money that we have, then I have a reason to be concerned. And I hope he meant the second one.
All right, Bill Okero, good morning.
Good morning. Now, I find that statement by the president to be disingenuous, frankly, because the ratio of tax to GDP is dependent on two figures. One is the tax revenue, and the other one is the GDP. It depends on how you measure both. In this country, the government has been very smart in using levies instead of taxes. For example, if you are importing goods today which are of agricultural nature, you pay the nuts and oil crop development 2% levy, they call it petroleum railway development levy, you call it ADF. On top of that, then you have the taxes, the VATs and so forth, and the duties and so forth. So there's all this. How do you measure the amount of tax revenue? That is important, because many of the government charges and taxes that levies that they collect are not considered as taxes, but they in fact are a very indirect way of collecting taxes. Second, how much is our GDP? So if I, for example, Uhuru in his 10 years, he rebased the GDP by 30%. In other words, he increased the GDP, revised it by 30%. Now, what would that, before he did that, before Uhuru did that, our tax to GDP ratio was 19%. Immediately that, those that it did the rebasing, it came down to 14%. So even today,
after rebasing,
the president says it's 14%. Let me give you the figures. For example, our tax collection by KRA last year, the year that just ended, was 2.5 trillion. If you check the central bank statistics on what is the GDP for Kenya, the figures that they published for 2022 was 13 trillion. Simple arithmetics. If you divide that 2.5 trillion with 13, you'll get 18%. So we're at 18% if you go by that. So I mean, this thing is all dependent on how you want to measure it. The second thing is that if you look at how the government argues that the reason why we are raising taxes is because our tax to GDP is low compared to other parts of the world, it's not true. Look at America. It's the richest country in the world, the most developed country. Is tax to GDP ratio is 27%. Compare that with Europe, the average is 33%. So are Americans, collecting taxes? Will you say no? No. Look at Africa's largest economy. It's Nigeria. Its tax to GDP ratio is less than 7%. Less than 7%. Are you saying that those Nigerians, the economy is terrible and those people are living in a bad shape because they're not collecting taxes? Look at South Africa. It's 25, it's the highest, obviously. But that 25, does it mean that the economy of Tanzania is so good, of South Africa is so good? No, they have problems with power. They have one of the highest unemployment rates. They have serious problems. So these things, the fact that you collect taxes does not necessarily mean that the more the tax I collect, the more I will save and the economy will grow and I will, all Kenyans will be happy and so forth. No, I think this is completely misleading. India is one of the largest democracies in the world. It's 11%. I mean, and it's one of the countries that are exporting most to the rest of the world in agriculture and many products. So I think this crazy focus by this government on tax is completely misleading. And I think it's disingenuous for the government to continue saying, 1 minute, we are raising taxes because we want to avoid collecting loans. The next it is no, because our ratio is low. The next, every day is a new excuse. Look, you are getting loans. In the government's tax budget policy statement, they said in the 5 years to 2027, we will raise loans amounting to 5 trillion. This is officially in the government budget policy statement. Uhuru collected in 10 years 6 trillion. They want to collect in 5 years 5 trillion. At the same time, you want to collect, taxes from every, let me tell you, in an economy that is depressed like ours, economy is doing bad. This is not the time to tax. You need to give people incentives. This is when you need to reduce actually taxes so that businesses can grow. I invest, you create employment, you generate more income. This is the way people do it in the rest of the world. But I think this action by this government seems to be to please Americans, to please IMF. We're playing to another audience, not to the Kenyan people. And I think it needs to stop, really. I mean, you cannot tax people to a point where you're taxing them into poverty. Because the more the taxes means, I don't feel encouraged to do investment. I don't feel encouraged to do business because what will be my bottom line? Indeed. I will not be able to earn anything. So you're discouraging people. People are moving out. Businesses will think twice. When you take your pen and pencil, should you invest in this country? Already you have problems of high cost of energy, high problems of infrastructure, and many other challenges. Then you're adding tax. So when you calculate, you find, no, it's better for me to invest in Tanzania. I better go to Ethiopia. Ethiopia is now the largest economy in Eastern Central Africa. Their tax to GDP is only 7%. This thing about thinking that the more tax you collect, you're going to develop a country is nonsense. Let people have money in their pocket and let the people, generate their own businesses and income. That's how you grow the economy. That's how you employ people. That's how you make people happy. That's my take on it.
Right. We are taxing to the point of deflection because we've seen before that even when they raise these taxes, people are not really, having that consumption power, the purchasing power at the end of the day. So the revenue that they are desiring is not really being realized at the end of the day, Bunyasi Sakwa. So when you say that we continue to tax yearly, what does it really mean? Just listening to what Bill Okero is saying, we're also coming from, that particular specter of COVID-19. People are still trying to stabilize their businesses. That had a huge impact also on the bottom line. So at least some landing pad will have been nice with some tax rebates and tax reliefs here and there so that people may actually pick up and grow their businesses from even COVID-19?
Thanks. It's interesting hearing my colleagues on the panel express this. Senator, Carol, with tremendous passion. He's a fiscal conservative, doesn't like taxes in any shape and form. So that I think I can understand that. But first of all, the sources of information are also important. I've been following this debate from last evening and perhaps the day before on what the president actually said and what the papers said and so on. Yes, indeed. But let's just deal with the issue of the average to GDP, the revenue to GDP average number that the president mentioned. It is true that like every average, you have to look at the base, and of course you have to measure the base and you have to measure the numerator. You have to get the 14%. You have to measure the revenue of the GDP. But we have to say that the way GDP is being measured, even in this case, is the way we have always used it before as an aggregate in the economy. We can't revise after the rebasing, we can't now again change it. And I would hope that the Bureau of Statistics does a good job of estimating it. What the president did say, by way of comparison, knowing that we are at a time when the finance bill is going to go before the House, this debate of we are overtaxed, we are not taxing enough, the state thinks maybe we are not taxing enough, the people feel are being taxed a lot, that this would come up. And he said, hey, look, our revenue to GDP average, and that can be challenged purely on statistical grounds if people have other numbers, but let's take that so that we can get the argument going, is about 14%. And there are countries that even within our regions in the continent, that some are higher, some are less. And let us not link that ratio to levels of prosperity or happiness by itself. We are only to link it to how you are tackling your problem where you are on the growth curve. So on this one, what he did say, we have room to grow at about 22%, which is his target. You can grow by various ways, but two critical ways is you can change the numerator, the revenue you're collecting, and you can change that either by virtue of the rate, which Professor Iraki mentioned, or by expansion of the tax bracket. We talk about this loosely, and people chime in, say, yes, let us expand the tax bracket, let us get those who are out and do not pay to pay more, or to pay some, not even pay more, and there may be a combination of paying more and more people paying. That also can raise the ratio. Now, comments that relate to it's not enough to concentrate on raising revenue. It's important to also concentrate on its use and its efficiency in its use, and all those are valid issues. And that's why the affairs of the state require, like in our three-pronged arms of government, that there are checks and balances, that resources are used properly. And we have challenges in that as a country, sometimes where you get things popping up all the time about misuse of funds, so that's usually discouraging. When I look up the headlines today and we want to spend 2.6 billion renovating the DP's home and so on, I say, but is this a time of austerity? Is it not a time of austerity? So there are those issues you can raise validly. But as a nation, I think looking at one of the indicators, the tax to GDP ratio is important, because taxes are going to continue to be an important source of revenue. And just how are we doing in the field alongside others? If you take it in isolation and say that's all you're pursuing, that will not be a balanced approach. And the president cannot be in the business of maximizing one element rather than balancing off these elements as we go forward. You should look at expenditure, cuts in expenditure, which will reduce the pressure on taxes. You should also look at who are those, and in some ways or other, that are evading or are not within the tax bracket, that you can bring into the tax bracket progressively. And then you have to discuss the numbers. I think it's very good for a country to be discussing these aggregate numbers. We have spent the last 18 months or 2 years very schooled in forex issues, foreign exchange issues, and the importance of the reserve currency, the dollar, educated our population quite a lot, because then it was a real issue. And now, of course, the tax time has come. So I think it's a healthy thing in the economy that these kinds of discussions that are going on would temper the way the final amendments are made to the finance bill. Quick as I conclude, I was in a meeting the other day, and with some private sector investors outside dealing with us in KDC, and they were concerned. Well, they're proposing an excise duty increase of a very substantial amount, and he said, well, if they did that, it's going to dig deep into our profits, and there's 2 billion loss there as soon as we see it, right from what they saw as the proposal in the finance bill on excise duty. Another question is, of course, the country can't raise taxes to a point where you begin to undermine growth, and that's a point Bill O'Carroll said. That you can only do so if there are issues on the margin and there's a disagreement whether it can actually reduce growth or not reduce. If it's obvious it will, you don't go that route, obviously, because even the amount of revenue you'll collect, if the economy shrinks, is going to be less than you are doing before. So there's no need to raise rates to a point where now the response of the consumer is to say, hey, I'll cut back consumption, I'll do substitution, I will move out, I'll move on, and so on. You really can't do that. So I think it's a healthy environment to do that, and let us pray that the numbers are as robust as they can be, so that we really can then say, if this is where we are, how should we actually move? And I'm sure that they will be listening.
But sorry,
I'm listening. I wish they were listening.
Can I add something on that?
I wanted to just please.
Because I think we are spending a lot of time focusing on the tax, the numerator, but I wish we spend more time focusing on the denominator, the GDP, because we pay tax because we make money. So what we should be focusing is, if we want this tax to go up, to collect more tax, what should we do with the economy to expand? So one way is to give people incentives, so that I want to invest, I want to expand my business, I want to open new branches, I want to go to another country. But we are focusing too much on how much tax shall I get from you. So if you talk to any businessman, if you talk to any Kenyan individual, everybody is interested in paying taxes, by the way. There's nobody who say I don't want to pay taxes. But they're asking, can you help me make more money so that I may pay more taxes? And that's what I expect the government officials to be telling us. We want you to pay more taxes, but this is how we are going to help you make more money. But you're not focusing on that. How are you going to make the economy more productive so that people make more money and pay more taxes? And that's why I'm saying the best way to deal with this equation, very simple equation, is to make us richer so that we pay more taxes.
But that is the accent or something that is a bit of a mirage that, we need to,
It's not a mirage. There are so many things we can do to make Kenyans richer and make more money.
You should be more concerned with the axe that is really coming on your neck than the mirage that you want to follow.
He has a point. You remember what Uhuru said in his last two speeches before the last 2 years, I think, the budget. He said we are now the sixth richest country in Africa, and he kept saying that we have become richer and richer because he expanded the GDP by reversing it and made it look like we are the richest. And I think the issue is, yes, the GDP, what Kibaki did, and this president likes saying, I want to do what Kibaki did. Kibaki did not start by taxes. We want this country, I was the shadow of finance minister, so I know what Kibaki did. They focused on growing the economy. The tax grew.
That's
you just
argument.
need to look at how the GDP grew, and you can see then the taxes grew in tandem. But here's a situation where we are introducing taxes as punitive action. Actually, most of the taxes this government is introducing is punitive, period. It has nothing to do with what we are talking about. For example, the motor vehicle that people are talking about. This motor vehicle, when you buy, you paid a lot of taxes. You paid customs duty, you paid excise duty, you paid VAT, you paid huge, in fact, almost more than 100% of the price of the vehicle. Then, throughout your use, you are paying fuel levy. It's 18 shilling per litre. Every single day you are driving that vehicle. You are paying petroleum regulatory levy, which is now 75 cents per litre. I mean, the government doesn't look at all those taxes that's generated from your vehicle.
Including the spare parts also that you buy.
Including the spare parts that I am continuous VAT. Now you say, I want to again, otherwise don't use your vehicle, leave it at home. This is just being punitive. I am in an industry cooking oil, vegetable cooking oil. is already being taxed crazy money, including levies for oil crop development and so forth. Today, if you look at the Section 42 of the Finance Bill, they're introducing 25% excise duty on a product which is already so expensive. A 20-liter jerrycan is already 4,000 today. You're introducing eco tax on the plastics which are used for the jerrycans and so forth. You're introducing 25% excise levy on the CPO, on the crude that you're importing. Where are you driving? It's not about, there's many of these countries that Ruto wants to compare us with. They do not touch areas of basic necessities. Things like food. You go to Ethiopia and Egypt and many of these countries. On areas of food, they do not actually try to focus, look for taxes. So I think government needs to rethink that it's not about them collecting money and making us happy. No. And they are there to collect money and provide some basic services, which they are not doing. They are not focusing on how the money is being lost. I mean, all these other ways in which money is being lost that he talked about. So I think the taxes are just being punitive and it's rational.
Right. We'll hear from you. I think it's 7 o'clock on the nose. We want to take a short break. And of course, when we circle back, is the government also none the wiser? Going by what the projections were for the revenue collections that the KRA were targeting, and they failed to hit that particular target. Now also they're paring down by around 300 billion shillings for is it the next financial year? 300 billion shillings, the shortfall that was there. Because people are saying this 300 billion shillings that was the shortfall was because also the taxes that where we're saying we have the deflection point where people now are not really consuming much. So they were not really able to, of course, realize the taxes. So if you have that particular indication before, why would you go full steam ahead and also up the ante as far as revenue collection is concerned, and also get more taxes, make Kenyans pay more taxes? Will you realize that particular target, or this is the mirage that we were talking about? As much as you want to target it, it is eluding you. It is going away from you. All right, we'll take a short break. You're watching Sokoni here on Morning Prime.